It is no secret that South Africans feel battered by stories of corruption, organized crime, greed, and that powerful people continue to be implicated. It might be surprising then that in other parts of the world, South Africa is celebrated for its efforts. In this series of conversations, we focus on the other side. We want to move beyond headlines and hear from people at the coalface of efforts to deal with corruption and organized crime. I'm Cheryl Frank. I run the Anti-Corruption and Accountability Project at the Institute for Security Studies. We interviewed advocate Shamila Batohi late in October 2025 as she planned her transition out of the role of National Director of Public Prosecutions at the National Prosecuting Authority. At the time, the appointment process for her successor had begun. That resulted in a process and an outcome that we will no doubt discuss in future episodes. We wanted to hear Shamila Batohi's reflections on her tenure and achievements at the NPA in broad terms. We hope you'll find this discussion as interesting as we did. Shamila Batohi, we speak to you today as you plan your exit from the role of National Director of Public Prosecutions, that you've held since February 2019. And as we speak, there's an open process for the appointment of your successor.
Yeah, that's right.
Finally.
Finally, that's true.
So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. I should say up front that we're not strangers to each other. We know each other reasonably well. The Institute for Security Studies has been supporting the implementation of some of your strategic initiatives here at the NPA. And so maybe that would be a good place to start. I remember I met you for the first time in May 2019. That was a few months after you took office. And you had gathered your senior managers. There were over 250 of them, as I remember, in Gauteng. And you brought together this group of leaders. And I'm interested in what were the big issues on your mind at the time as you spoke to them for the first time.
So that was about 3 or 4 months into my term. And, coming into office, as I said during my interview, I said coming to the NPA is like house on fire at the time.
Yes.
So that first meeting with the senior managers, a really big one, was the first time, as you said, I was engaging with, the senior leadership of the NPA. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure what to expect of the group. But what I knew is that from our perspective, what we were trying to do at that time is to bring everybody together and to try to regroup as the NPA, given what the institution had gone through in the 10 years before that. It was the trauma of state capture. Let me put it that way. And, this was a traumatized institution, weakened institution with resources, that were, seriously constrained, and motivation levels were low. And so it was about regrouping and us really thinking about how do we move this big ship forward, or turn this big ship first on a different direction and then move it forward. And so the key things on my mind at that point was, the key challenges we were facing at the time was, relating to staff morale and relating to all the things I've mentioned. And so at that time, at that point, it was, how do we start thinking about these issues and how to change, the NPA so that we identify the critical issues. We think about, what we need to do to slowly move this big ship, as I said, out of the state capture era into, a direction that is pointing us towards strengthening the rule of law, strengthening the capacities, capabilities in the NPA to be a fit-for-purpose organization that can really serve only the people of this country. And so those were some of the really big issues that we are dealing with. But trust was also a big issue at the time because it was a factionalized institution. And, I don't know how much of that has really changed now. I think we are certainly, come together a lot. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are people still in the institution that, are not aligned to the vision, the new vision. Well, it's not new anymore, it's 7 years almost, to the vision of the new leadership, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So that was a big issue as well.
So we're going to get to that, lots more on that. You became a public figure as evidence leader in the King Commission of Inquiry into match fixing in cricket in South Africa. South Africans watched the downfall of a national hero as you led evidence against Hansie Cronje. And as I remember, Hansie broke down on the stand under your questioning. How do you feel about that period? What are some of your reflections on that period?
I think that was probably one of the most stressful periods in my life, dealing with the commission, especially considering that I was totally unprepared for it. I mean, the whole country had suddenly, the popo had hit the fan, let's put it that way. And the country was in shock about the possibility that our beloved Hansie could be involved in anything like this. And I remember at the time there was, the Indian police got it wrong and, all of that. And so I was like the rest of the country in shock and reading about this until one day I got a call from Bulelani Ngcuka and he said to me he wanted to meet me. And I remember I was in the Durban office at the time and I was a deputy DPP at the time. And we met at the old ITSIO offices in Smith Street in Durban in the evening. I remember it was a rainy evening, it was dark. And he said to me, I had no idea why we were meeting. And he said to me, I'd like you to lead the evidence in the King Commission of Inquiry. And I was shocked because I had never thought that this will be, the whole country is talking about this. And the first thing I said to him is, where is it going to be? And he said, in Cape Town. I said, I can't do that because I have family. I have 2 young kids. My boys were about 10 and 12 at the time. And I was a hands-on mother. Now it's more hands-off. So, it was very difficult. And I said to Bulelani, I'm not sure I can do this, because for these reasons. And he said to me, well, the president's going to announce it tomorrow.
Yes.
So just accept it, go to Cape Town, and then we'll talk. And of course, that never happened. Once I got in, there was no pulling out of it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got involved and got into everyone's living rooms at the time. And as you said, became a very public figure when I was not trained for that.
Yeah.
I'm a prosecutor at that time. There was, I don't think there were any legal processes that were televised like that. And so you do yourself in a courtroom. Of course, it's open, but not the whole country watching and commenting on your every word or action. And so it was a very, very stressful time, when the cameras were let in. But yeah, so, that's how it happened. And a very difficult time for me because, I had to be in Cape Town in the week, then come back on the weekends, make sure that everything's ready for the boys, like preparing for their school the next week and their lunches and putting notes on the fridge to kind of, and it was a very stressful time in my life. And so a very difficult time. But, it's something that I had to do. It was my job.
And then fast forward to your appointment as National Director, and that was in the midst of the Zondo Commission, airing out the depths of corruption in the country. And as you know, South Africans had never expected to be to see those depths of the problems in the country. And looking back, to what extent did you grasp the pressures that would place on you as a leader? Because you'd accepted the job maybe in 2018?
Yes.
Yes?
December.
And so, did you grasp it at the time that how problematic, difficult that would be?
I knew it was going to be a huge challenge. I was under no illusions about that. And you'll recall when I was first approached with my name into the hat, I said no, because it's not what I wanted to do. And eventually I was nominated by Nadell. And because I didn't want to apply for the job, you know. And then, you know, as you know, I kind of, at the end of the day, decided to come back from the Netherlands because I saw it as my duty to my country and people of South Africa. And so I was away for about 10 years. So I was watching from the Netherlands about what was going on in South Africa. So I wasn't here in the country experiencing it. But, you know, reading what was going on, I mean, you know, I remember being asked at some point before I came back, you know, would you come back to South Africa? And I said, of course, you know, I will always come back, but never to the NPA, because I could just see what was going on, and I knew it was just chaotic, you know, with the factions, and so I knew it was going to be challenging, but as I said, I took the job because of a sense of duty, but to be honest, it turned out being a lot more challenging than I realized at the time. And I think the past year has probably been maybe the worst. And I've never, I mean, this year, I would have been a prosecutor for 40 years this year. And I was saying to prosecutors, because I'm traveling around the country, speaking to prosecutors for, you know, motivating them, and through a transition and uncertain times, attacks on the NPA and things like that. And, you know, I've just been, you know, going through this process whereby I've been saying to them, in the past year, with the attacks on the National Director, the NPA, with attacks on prosecutors, with an almost toxic environment that we have to go through, you know, in the political context, I don't, and with prosecutors being attacked, not just, I mean, we have had prosecutors killed, and the litigation, the litigious environment we're working in, we've never experienced anything like this. And so I really, you know, think that it's much more complex than we realized, and now we are going through a very difficult time. And I think, you know, what happens, you know, in Madlanga and all of these commissions, that I mean, there's actually effectively four, because you've got the Madlanga Commission, and then you've got the Parliamentary Committee dealing with the same thing, so that's two. Then you've got the TRC Commission that the President has announced, where I expect I would be called to testify. I mean, I've been called to Parliament. I'll be in Parliament on the 11th of November. So then there's the TRC Commission, and then, as you know, the DPP of Johannesburg has been suspended. There's a commission of inquiry into that, and the office is just busy preparing for commissions. When we have so much more work to do in terms of our core business of, you know, strengthening the NPA, and there's a whole lot of strategic initiatives. A lot of work's been done, but I thought this last time is going to be spent on cementing those things and getting prepared with a proper handover, which we will do for my successor. But I never thought that all of these commissions are going to come in, and it's just going to become a very, very busy time, to put it mildly.
The state capture prosecutions are likely going to be the enduring story of your tenure as the National Director.
Sadly.
Yeah, and I believe that regardless of the actual breadth of your work, that's what will be remembered. How do you feel about this?
I think it is, you know, when I've reflected as well on, you know, what have, you know, am I satisfied with how far we've come as the National Prosecuting Authority? And there's two parts to answering that question. The one part is extremely satisfied with how far we've turned the ship around. And, you know, I can talk about all of the initiatives and what we've done to strengthen We have, unless you're going into that later, but there's a whole lot of things we've done there. Unless you want me to go into it now, I can. But it's, you know, it's capacity building, capability, partnerships with all kinds of stakeholders in government, strengthening those, but innovative partnerships with business to support our work, the setting up of the IDAC, Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, and in that context, the setting up of the Digital Evidence Unit, which is going to be a game changer, working with business in the context of the presidential initiative to support government. So all of that, I mean, our asset forfeiture, you know, people don't realize that, and I'm still dealing with the first part of the answer to the question.
Okay.
People don't realize that accountability for high, complex corruption has two prongs, and that's our strategy. It's a two-pronged strategy. Of course, it's prosecutions and what people say orange overalls, let's say consequences, and it is bringing back the stolen money. And if we don't get that back, we could have people in prison, and we will. But we need that money back in our country. And so asset forfeiture has been one of the huge success stories because of all the recoveries, let me just collectively say recoveries, over the past 25 years.
Right.
In the past 4 years, we've recovered close to 50% of everything recovered in 25 years.
Yes.
And that is huge. And I can talk about what that money is going in for. So on that side of it, building the NPA, you know, is a lot of work. And I'm very satisfied with where the NPA is. But on the other hand, I mean, one of the key priorities was always from day one, accountability for state capture matters. And to be honest, when I took office, I thought, how difficult can this be? One case, one big case will turn sentiment around like this. But I realized that it is much more difficult than I thought. And there are various reasons for that, which we'll go into. But having said that, I hasten to add that the IDAC has, I don't have my figures here, but I stand to be corrected, but it's over 300 accused persons in court. The key Gupta lieutenants in South Africa, Anoj Singh, Siyabonga Gama, Brian Molefe, Woods, Regiment's Capital, Niven Pillay, Mudli, Raghavan, I can name so many. They are all arrested and in court. Key Gupta lieutenants. But rule of law, strength in the rule of law, isn't just about enrolling cases. It's about making sure that it moves through the system. And there are so many reasons why these cases don't move through the system. Whether it's institutional problems in the court system, but importantly, these powerful accused persons have very wily lawyers and they have deep pockets. And their ability to delay matters is just, you know, they have just perfected it. And I have said this at numerous fora, including at the Constitutional Court during a ceremonial sitting when Judge Zondo left, as well as Judge Madlanga's farewell recently, that the role of the judiciary in ensuring that cases once enrolled move swiftly through is the role of the judiciary.
Right.
And there needs to be hard case management because, you know, a fair trial, the Constitutional Court has actually ruled on this and has actually pronounced that a fair trial does not mean only fair for the accused. It also means fairness for the state, and it should not be that it renders a prosecution impossible. And that is exactly what's happening. I mean, we have the case against the ex-president, who, one of our best prosecutors in the country in Billy Downer, has been trying for 20 years to get that case started and has still failed. So, you know, there's something in the system has got to give. Otherwise, sadly, we are not going to see accountability and orange overalls, if that is the consequence, for high-level corruption anytime soon. And, you know, I've also asked the question at these, you know, at the Concord with judges and regional court magistrates, regional court presidents from across the country. I've raised it at efficiency enhancing committee meetings, which is chaired by the Chief Justice, to say, what is the role of the judiciary in implementing government priorities, understanding that the judiciary is the third arm of government. What is the role of the judiciary in implementing government priorities, importantly in line with their independent mandate? So the independence of the judiciary is sacrosanct, and that must be respected at all times. But what is the role of the judiciary in implement, if not, corruption is a priority. So what is the role of the judiciary in ensuring that corruption cases, for example, move quickly through the system?
Yes.
So to answer your questions, I am hugely disappointed that state capture matters have not moved through the system as quickly as they should. I'm hugely disappointed that the UAE court turned down our application for the extradition of the Guptas. But that's not the end. There will be a new extradition, certainly before I leave office, with more charges than we originally had. And so there's a lot of work still to happen. So these are, huge disappointments. But we must be careful that it's easy to blame the NPA. And I agree things should have moved quicker in certain circumstances. But we have to look at systemic challenges and understand why these cases take this long.
But if we could speak to those systemic challenges, because they will certainly dog your successor as well as others that remain in the system as you move to whatever your next role is. But if we can dwell a little bit about the systemic challenges, is that I've always been confused a little bit about this function of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, because you are so dependent, the position is so dependent. So if you could speak a little bit to the complexities of that systemic problem and the way it's constructed currently, and whether there are some other structural challenges that must be dealt with for the next National Director to be more successful.
Well, I think in as much as people think the National Director has got a lot of power,
yes,
I think probably the National Director is one of the least powerful heads of a constitutional institution in this country.
Yeah.
And certainly earns less than a number of other equal government department heads.
If we think that the job is lucrative.
Well, exactly.
Yes.
That's the point. And
yes.
I'm not complaining about salary.
Yes.
But if considering what the NDPP is expected to do in the country,
yes,
the environment is not conducive for optimal success, let's put it that way, or efficiency, operational and functional efficiency and effectiveness. And the reason why I say that is, firstly, the DG of Justice, the Director General, is the accounting officer of the NPA. So as a National Director, you are dependent on someone in the Department of Justice to approve various spending, procurement issues, let's put it that way. That's the first. And procurement is not a compliance issue. It is a strategic imperative. And people forget that. The DG of Justice has got no idea what's going on in the NPA, but must take decisions with regard to our strategic imperatives. And so that's the first issue. Hugely problematic. And then when you look at, the appointment processes, it's fine. I mean, there's no prosecuting authority in the world, none that I certainly know of, where that is outside of the executive. So that's fine. There's got to be some link to the executive. And in the NPA Act, the minister has final responsibility, and that has been the subject of some discussion, a lot of discussion around that. But it's clear the NPA Act gives certain guidance in terms of what that should look like.
Right.
And that's fine. We're accountable to the executive in that sense, and we need to be. There are various levels of accountability. But the reality is that as a national director, well, let's just say in the structure of the NPA, the first 4 levels are executive appointments.
Right.
So that's the NDPP, the deputy NDPPs, the DPPs in all the provinces are all appointed by the president. The next layer, which is your chief prosecutors and the deputy DPPs, are appointed by the minister.
Right.
So there's executive and then of course the hiring and firing of all of those levels, depends on the executive. And so I think that there needs to be, amendments to legislation that deals with how a national director is hired, in particular. And so, we've had, I was appointed in a very transparent public process. And I think that's a very good model. My understanding is that the president, not my understanding, it's been announced that there will be a similar process for the appointment of my successor. But one thing I would really urge is when these changes, hopefully I'm saying when they are made, because I really hope they're made, because Minister Lamola was committed to it, and my understanding from what the current minister says, she's also committed to an open, transparent process. That said, I would urge that it's not a JSC type process, because I do not think politicians should be involved in the appointment process of a national director.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else. Your question had quite a lot to it.
No,
so
that's
you need
fine.
to see
It was mostly the structural issues that have influenced your ability to do your job, and that will continue for your successor.
No,
and
absolutely.
Are there other structural concerns you have? We've talked about the independence issue,
the operational financial independence,
issue, how appointments are made, and the power of a national director to hire and fire those below and
no, absolutely, to just not even hire and fire, to if you have any issue, discipline, in a formal way.
Yes,
that's challenging. And you certainly can't be referring every little issue to the president to deal with. So there needs to be some changes to the legislation that allows a national director to be able to do that. I think the other thing you raised was the relationship between DPPs and a national director. Right. And that's the other point where the country thinks that the national director of public prosecutions takes all decisions to prosecute.
Yes.
And that could not be further away from the truth. The NDPP is not involved at all in a decision to prosecute. That legal authority lies in your provincial heads of the NPA. That is your directors of public prosecutions, the DPPs. They have the legal authority to make decisions to prosecute. But they do work in terms of the Act under the control and direction of the NDPP. But when it comes to decisions, and it's important that an NDPP does not get involved in those decisions, because according to the Act, the NDPP is a review mechanism. And so if you are involved in the original decision, which is legally, that's not, it's ultra vires and NDPP's powers, but you cannot get involved in the evidence and the strength of the case, because if the matter comes to you to make for review, you're going to have to have you're going to have to have an objective view on this. So you can't be involved in that decision-making process. But of course, dealing with certain types of cases has been a priority for us, like corruption, state capture. And so the national director can, of course, understand why things are not moving, ask for reports, get involved in terms of supporting, what is the support that's needed to make sure that things move and, hold DPPs accountable in that way. But as far as the decisions to prosecute, the NDPP doesn't have anything to do with that.
So let's look internally then. You've spoken about some of the achievements, and maybe you certainly asset recovery. Talk about a few of the others that you feel that you've made substantial inroads into achievements within the NPA. In terms of this, you've characterized it as a rebuilding effort. You've also characterized it colorfully as having to fix an aeroplane while it's in flight. And those were some of the words you used along the way, along the journey. What do you feel? Maybe 2 or 3 things do you think are the most important achievements internally? Maybe just that for now, and then I'll get.
I think some of the most important ones, in addition to the asset forfeiture that I mentioned, is our strengthening of capacity and capabilities within the NPA.
Right.
I mean, we have increased our staff complement by about 25% in the past 4 years. Our budget has increased by about the same.
Right.
And so we've got good support from the executive in terms of getting the funding. There was a lot of budget advocacy that went on in the early days to get the funding. So that was really important that we got the support. So, our increase and our in capability, capacity, but also enhancing of skills, where we are still, we're still not quite there, but we are looking at getting external counsel to assist us. So, but doing a capability review and, understanding what the capabilities were and then trying to fill in those gaps. I think we've come a long way. We restarted the aspirant prosecutors program, which had stopped because of financial reasons. That was really, also really important. We've set up, integrity and ethics is fundamental to any prosecutor. You cannot have a dishonest prosecutor. Even if it's for 10 rands, in my view, you must be fired. A fair process, there's no place for you. So, being very, very zero tolerance to any kind of dishonest, unethical conduct, corruption. Then in that context, we set up the Office of Ethics and Accountability, which is a really important improvement in the institution. And that, we still need it. We are capacitating it, but the work is coming in, and that is, on the one hand, it's disappointing because you don't want to think that there are so many prosecutors that are compromised, but on the other hand, it's good that people feel that there's confidence in this new entity that sits in the National Director's office, that is looking at, they can whistleblowers and things are coming forward. So that's, a really, really important development. And the creation of the IDAC is hugely important. And let me tell you, that was not easy. I could probably write a book about how difficult. One would think that given that the whole country was moving towards, wanting us to deal with state capture, why it took us so long, so that it was only established permanently last year in August, is, there's a lot of reasons for it that we don't have time to go into it.
Yeah.
But getting that, established is a huge step forward in terms of, we now can capacitate a permanent unit within the NPA. You cannot capacitate something that's temporary. And that was all of the challenges that we had with the IDAC, relying on other entities like the DPCI, other government entities to actually second people to work in the IDAC. Is a model that was just not working. When the DPCI itself does not have the sufficient capacities, capabilities, how are they supposed to give us the best? Because that's what we would have wanted to deal with the most complex corruption. So setting that up is a huge step forward in the fight against corruption. And then, of course, our initiative with business, as I mentioned earlier, to set up the digital evidence unit, because evidence is on gadgets today. Cell phones, laptops, and one of the reasons why the COCO matter was struck off the roll is because we could not quickly analyze that kind of data. And now with this unit that's been set up, funded by business for now, but the plan is for it to be taken over by government, is a huge boost in our fight against corruption. And so, I think that's, some of the highlights.
Sure.
And then just really getting a motivated team. The NPA, when I took office, people were saying they were so embarrassed about being members of the NPA because of what was going on with state capture. The NPA was not captured at all levels. The majority of prosecutors in the NPA, hardworking prosecutors, just wanted to serve the people of this country. There were a few people at the higher echelons of the NPA that did all the damage. And so, I've just been, I've been going around the country recently because of all the attacks, as I mentioned, on the NPA, because I'm leaving to really motivate prosecutors and through this transition period, because it creates uncertainty and people feel a bit nervous about this. And so to reassure people about, transitions happen in all organizations. So I've been going through the country, speaking to prosecutors, and I've, gone to KZN, I've gone to Gauteng, Western Cape. I was in the Free State just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Northern Cape, went to Uppington as well, where prosecutors had never seen a national director before. And so, but in every center I've been to, there haven't really been complaints. I have been so pleasantly surprised that prosecutors have been so appreciative of what we've done to try to empower them and to try to help them with the tools and to just change things in the NPA, and there's been a lot of attempts to make sure that prosecutors, we dealt with salaries of the DDPPs, there are all of these issues. So that's the other thing I think is, even though we're going through a very hard period with attacks, I was also wanting to speak to them because of attacks on the NPA, on the national director, in Parliament, in the press, and just for them to say, it's fine, don't worry about it. Forget the noise. Focus on what you need to do.
Right.
And so that I feel is also something that's really important in terms of the morale of the staff at this point in time.
Yeah. I wanted to hear your reflections on what you felt you've left undone that you see your successor having to prioritize. Undone, and your strategic initiatives that need to be continued.
Yeah, I think one of the key ones is, unfinished business, firstly, is moving all those, enrolling more high-level corruption, state capture cases. It's been a priority, continues to be a priority, and there's a lot of work that needs to still happen in that space. The operational and financial independence of the NPA. I was really hoping that we'd have legislation. I mean, the previous minister committed to Parliament there would be legislation in January 2025. Didn't happen. Current minister has committed that there will be legislation by the end of this financial year.
Right.
So I'm certainly hoping that, that will happen. Those are two of the key, very high level, sort of unfinished business. A lot of other things, of course, there's a lot of work happening that needs to continue because they're a very solid foundation that we've built. And so, I'm just thinking about what are the key other, sort of community prosecutions is an initiative that's really important. I think it needs to be strengthened, and we need to look at how we can really take that to another level. A lot of work that needs to go into that. So I think those are kind of three key issues. Issues of salary dispensation, we were not able to deal with that. We lose staff in the IDAC in particular. We need very highly specialized skills, and the NPA in the law enforcement sector. If you look at compared to SIU, FIC, we are bound by public service salary scales, and we cannot match even SARS what they pay.
Right.
So we're all fishing in the same pool, so to speak, and so we are losing. But now that we become permanent, we're seeing less of that. But we are looking at making sure that we can, get the salary scales that are more attractive for us to recruit and retain specialized skills in particular. So I think those are the key initiatives that is sort of unfinished business.
Yeah. I wanted you to just reflect for a moment on this issue of your public communication strategy, because notwithstanding the fact that you have communicated to some degree and have been a little bit reticent about communicating on the state capture issues from the, I think in the early stages of your tenure. You've often said the NPA's work must speak for itself. And then you changed your mind a little bit about that as we went along. But you have taken a public battering along the way. The NPA has taken a public battering. Could you speak to your journey relating to the way you approached communications in the NPA?
One of the things I'd say to my successor is get a permanent spokesperson. And I had spokespersons that were doing other things.
Yes.
And I think that really damaged the NPA and our ability to be out there constantly communicating. And that, I think, is something that should never have happened.
Yes.
So that, for me, is really it's a regret that we didn't, get I had Sikpo Ngwema, for the first year, and then, for various reasons, it just never happened.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I'd say and that's why it kind of put a little more pressure on me I don't think heads of prosecuting authorities in other countries communicate as much as we do in many parts of the world. They just get on with their work. But we have a very hungry media and society that constantly wants information, and it makes it very difficult to work in that kind of environment because, of the nature of the work that we do. And there's some things you can, some things you can't say. But of course, when the narrative becomes that, the NPA is failing for certain reasons, then of course you need to get out there and explain to the public so that they understand what the challenges are. And I have to say that this battering that you talk about and the attacks on the National Director has been for less than 10 cases. Less than 10 cases. We had a civil society roundtable where I went through this. I said, let's look at which are those cases that have really ruined and have driven the narrative that the NPA is not succeeding or failing, and the attacks on the National Director. Coco, New Lane, and all of these cases, none of them have reached finality in the legal process. So it's still in the legal process, but the NPA has been branded as having failed. We have not failed. We are following legal the New Lane matter, which is the matter where the National Director was castigated in that famous Amabongane documentary.
Right.
That matter, I think that case was used as a lynchpin to lynch the National Director. That case, was the one where the judge said comedy of errors, and really the judge was so scathing on the prosecution. And of course people were calling for the National Director's head. That matter was overturned in the Supreme Court of Appeal in May this year. Did anybody say anything about that? Those in the media that were really calling for the head of the NDPP or all that Sam Soul did is on our Facebook page say, well done NPA. But that case, I've never seen judges of the SCA criticize a judge for the way in which that matter was handled. So the point I make is that let's criticize from a position of understanding everything. And so I mentioned those two cases. The Gupta extradition is another one that we are accused of having failed in. The Estina matter, which is going to be enrolled. Coco, which is going to be re-enrolled.
Yeah.
So they are less than 10. Oh, and of course, Omotoso was the one that finally, really. And as a woman, it hurt particularly because I've been fighting for gender-based violence throughout my career. And, even was at the ICC, we developed the gender policy. And so this has been a really, important aspect for me as a woman. And that was devastating, that case, for our fight against sexual and gender-based violence. But the way in which it was handled, we needed to be responsible about not, about victims feeling that they no confidence in the system to help them.
Right.
Because this was one case, one very important case. And I really, those young women that stood up, I have incredible respect and for what they did. Stood up against a very powerful person. That was one very important case.
Right.
The NPA does hundreds of these cases every day. There are life sentences and long-term imprisonment meted out every day in our courts. by prosecutors who can do this. Our Tutuzela care centers are an international best practice where we provide the most comprehensive support services for victims on their journey to becoming survivors, whether it's the psychosocial, medical, legal, and then of course prosecution legal services. So, you know, it's really, as I say, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, the fighting for the rule of law is so important in this country. And so we need to, when we criticize, understand, you know, the facts, and then really look at how we can not criticize for the sake of criticizing, but criticize constructively. We're open to criticism. Of course, there are things we can do differently. We learn from mistakes we've made. We learn from things we've done well. And, you know, the rule of law is on a slippery slope in this country and globally.
Yes.
Look at what's happening in the US and other parts of the world.
Yes, and maybe I'm sorry to interrupt you
No,
right there.
I know, yeah.
But I do want to speak about, well, two last questions is, you know, as you plan to leave office, you're in the cycle again of commissions of inquiry and so on. And as you started, you leave at the, I mean, what are your impressions? What are your feelings about where we are in the country in terms of the rule of law? Is this a good thing for us, or is this a bad thing for us, that we're finding a whole range of interesting new exposures of trouble in the system?
I think that this has all come to the fore is the best thing for this country. The Madlanga Commission, I am really hoping will help us understand what is going on, not only in the SAPs. Primarily it focuses on the SAPs, but if there are bad apples in the NPA, I want to know about it.
Right.
And you may rest assured that in the NPA, if these things come to the fore, we don't sweep them under the carpet. And you won't find people in the NPA that are not going through processes where there have been allegations of any kind of complicity or have already been fired. Now, I wish the same was happening in the SAPs.
Right.
Because they're constant, I mean, there are people that are seriously compromised. And we work with the police. We should have a relationship with them where we can trust that what they bring to us as prosecutors is the truth. And we can rely on it. Taking a decision to prosecute has a huge impact on people. And building the rule of law has a huge impact on the country. We have to get it right. But if you have a dysfunctional police force, we are joined at the hip.
Yes.
We are never going to get this right. So I'm really pleased about these processes. And I hope it's going to actually show us the rot in our systems, because we've been tinkering. You can't tinker. It needs an overhaul. And I'm hoping that there will be strong recommendations that will come out from these processes that will help us understand the challenges, that will help us not tinker but reform in a very real way various entities in the criminal justice system, in particular the SAPs, crime intelligence. I mean, we are failing to deal with organized crime in this country. And if you look at what's coming out, you can understand why. So, you know, I really think it's sad for the country that this is the state of our institutions, but I think it's great that it's coming out. So there's hope now, I think, that there will be change.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about that.
I want to ask you, as you exit this office, what are you grateful for as you leave this institution that a lot of people have great respect for? And what are you grateful for? What are the good memories you're leaving with?
I am grateful for the opportunity to serve the people of this country. You know, people look for purpose in life. As a prosecutor, you're serving justice. You know, you are helping people heal, people that have been hurt. And to be honest, I am so grateful for this opportunity to lead this incredible institution with incredible hard-working prosecutors fighting for justice every day. And so, you know, I really feel blessed to have this job. And contrary to some crazy media article, fake news that talk about me getting blood transfusions
Yes.
and doing all kinds of crazy things,
Yes.
I have never, ever, ever said those things.
Yes.
We issued a statement.
Yes.
I am so grateful for this job, as
Yes.
difficult as it's been.
Yes.
I have found, it's just the job satisfaction, the gratitude.
Yes.
I just love what I do, and so I want to I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I think, and to help build a really important constitutional entity in South Africa.
Yes.
And strong institutions. People want the cases in court, and that will happen, and they're very important. But in a strong democracy, you need strong institutions. It's about looking at systems, processes, people, partnerships, and looking at integrity issues. And so I leave knowing that we have built an incredibly strong institution that the people of South Africa can really be proud of. But I know there needs to be cases that needs to move quickly. That has been my frustration. And I hope it's not my continued frustration when I become just an ordinary citizen in a couple of months.
Yes.
But I hope that we've put in place enough that is really going to help the next national director to build on that, and that we see fruits of all our labors that will be, the wheels of justice turning a lot quicker in the future.
And in a final 30-second comment, do you want to tell us what you're doing next?
I have no idea. I would be more than happy to say, but I honestly have no idea. When I wake up on the 1st of February, I have no idea what I'll be doing.
Okay.
And I've had no job offers, and for now I just want to do nothing for a couple of months.
Yes.
So I really don't know what I'm going to be doing. I do have a cruise booked for late in April, which I'm really looking forward to. 19 days of just kind of relaxing. So I'm looking forward to relaxing and reflecting, and just being grateful for this incredible time. As difficult as it's been, I just loved this journey, and so grateful again to be part of helping rebuild our country.
Yeah.
There's no greater purpose than to serve one's country, and this has just been a privilege and an honor for me.
Yeah. Shamila, we want to thank you for spending this time with us. We wish you all the best in the next phase of your journey. Thank you.